Welcome to the deep dive. We take source material, whatever it might be, and really dig in to pull out those key insights, those nuggets of knowledge just for you.
Yeah, it's all about getting to the core of it, understanding it, and maybe find those connections you didn't expect. Makes it stick.
Exactly. And today, we're looking at something that, well, it can be a bit tricky when you're starting out with English. Talking about the past.
Hmm.
We've got source material here. It's a script from a resource for beginners, and it focuses specifically on teaching how to handle some of those irregular past tense verbs.
That's right. When you want to say what happened yesterday or last week,
Mm.
English verbs often change. A lot add ed, sure, but then there's this other group.
The rule breakers.
Yeah, the ones that don't follow the rules, and that can feel a little overwhelming for someone new to the language.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack how this specific source tackles that. What choices did they make to make learning these tricky verbs feel, well, manageable and
Yeah.
effective?
Let's get into it. So this source, it's clearly aimed at beginners. Its main goal is simple. Give you the tools to talk about past events.
Okay.
And it dives right into that idea that verbs change for the past tense.
And it makes that distinction pretty early on, right, between the regular ed ones and the others.
Exactly. It calls them irregular verbs, the ones that don't follow that rule and have their own special past tense forms.
I like how the source apparently frames them, though.
Oh, yeah.
It calls them the cool rebels of the language.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. Kind of makes them sound less like a difficult grammar point and more like something, interesting to learn.
Takes the edge off the frustration, maybe.
I think so. And importantly, this source doesn't try to hit you with all the irregular verbs at once. That would be, well, a lot.
Right.
It makes a very deliberate choice to focus on just a small number.
And that choice is pretty critical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of just drowning you in exceptions, they pick the ones you're probably going to need right off the bat.
Precisely. They picked out 6 star verbs, that's their term, which are just super common in everyday chat. If you get these 6 down, you actually have a pretty solid base for talking about a lot of past stuff.
Okay, so let's meet these 6 stars then. What's the first one the source highlights?
First up is go, present tense go. In the past, it becomes went. That's W-E-N-T.
W-E-N-T.
Okay.
And the example sentence.
The source gives, I went to school yesterday. Nice and simple.
Okay, makes sense. What's next?
Next is see. Past form is saw. S-A-W.
S-A-W. And the example.
I saw a funny movie last night.
Nice.
Huh.
Who doesn't like seeing funny movies? Okay, verb number 3.
That would be eat. This one turns into 8. A-T-E.
K-T-E.
And the source actually points out it sounds just like the number 8.
Oh, that's a helpful tip, like 8.
Yeah. The example sentence is, I ate a delicious pizza for dinner.
Can't go wrong with a pizza example.
Yeah.
Okay, so after eating, maybe you get things done.
Often, yeah. So the verb do, past tense, did, D-I-D.
D-I-D. Example.
From the source. I did my homework before bed.
Very responsible. Okay, how about when people arrive? Like, someone shows up.
Ah, yes. The verb come. Past form is came. C-A-M-E.
Game.
Example. She came to my party last weekend.
Okay, and the last one, the 6th star verb.
That's have. In the past, it becomes had. H-A-D.
H-A-D. And the example for had.
We had so much fun at the park.
Okay, so let's recap those 6 from the source. Go becomes went.
See becomes saw.
Eat becomes ate.
Do becomes did.
Come becomes came.
And have becomes had.
Went, saw, a take, did, came, had. Got it. The source picks these because they're just so common, right?
Exactly. Think about it. Going places, seeing things, eating, doing tasks, people arriving, having experiences or things. It covers a lot of basic daily life.
Makes sense. So, okay, you learn the forms, went, saw, a take, etc. But how does the source actually tell you to use them? What are the main tips or rules they give?
Well, the big one is just acknowledging these are irregular, so you kind of have to memorize the past form. They even use this phrase saying, with practice, they'll stick in your brain like glue.
So memorization and practice are really key for these specific ones. No easy rule like adding ed.
Nope. But then they give a really important rule about how to use them, and it's actually about keeping it simple.
Okay.
Basically, once you know that past tense word like went or saw, you just use it.
Yeah.
Straight up. You don't need to add extra words to show it's the past.
Ah, so they tackle that common mistake head on. Like the source gives the example, I saw a dog. That's correct.
Yeah.
Not I saw a dog.
Exactly. They're saying just use the past verb.
Yeah.
Done. No need for was or were right before it in these simple past sentences. It simplifies things.
That must feel like a bit of a relief for beginners, actually. Cuts out one potential confusion.
I think so. And there's another simplification the source points out for these verbs.
Oh, yeah.
The past tense form went, saw, ate, did, came, and it works for everybody.
Wait, you mean like I went, you went, he went, she went, we went, they went, the verb went, just stays went.
That's exactly it. It doesn't change depending on who did the action. Not like some present tense verbs where you add an S for he or she. The source calls this easy peasy. And honestly, for these past forms, it really is.
That's great. No need to worry about matching the verb ending to the subject for these past tense ones. One less thing to juggle.
Definitely simplifies things when you're just getting started.
Okay, so knowing the forms and the basic rules is one thing, but language learning is really about doing, right? Putting it into practice. How does this source material build that in? How do they get you using the verbs?
They have this whole section called Let's Say It Together.
Right, making it active. How does that work exactly?
Well, the idea is straightforward. The hosts in the source say a sentence, and then you, the listener, repeat it.
Okay.
And they're really clear. They say you can say it out loud or in your head.
Yeah.
You know, if you're somewhere you can't talk.
So you hear it, then you try saying it. What sort of sentences do they use for this practice?
Simple ones, everyday stuff, using those 6 verbs we just talked about. Like they'll say, I went to the market.
Okay, short pause.
Then you'd repeat it. Then maybe, I saw my cat.
Right. Short pause.
I ate breakfast.
Short pause.
I did my homework.
Okay, short pause.
She came home late.
Short pause.
And we had pizza for lunch.
Another pizza. Short pause. Okay, so these are relatable examples, things people actually do.
Yeah, it connects the grammar directly to life.
Yeah.
And the source seems quite supportive, too, right? If you feel a bit shy speaking.
It does. It emphasizes that repeating in your head is okay, but it also nudges you a bit further.
How so?
It suggests practicing by making your own sentences, maybe with a friend or someone in your family.
Moving from just repeating to actually creating something yourself.
Yeah, it's like the next step. Guided practice first, then a bit more independence.
Smart. That makes sense.
Now, this is where I think it gets quite interesting. The source includes something called a cultural tidbit. Why bring culture into a grammar lesson?
Well, the source makes this great point that talking about the past is a big part of conversation in English-speaking cultures.
Okay.
So it immediately links the grammar point, these past tense verbs, to actual social interaction. It's saying knowing these isn't just for, like, a test. It's so you can actually chat with people.
Right. So if you can talk about what you did do, you can join in those everyday conversations, like what you did over the weekend or on vacation, or even just what you had for dinner last night.
Exactly. The source gives that specific example of asking, what did you do this weekend? It mentions this is super common, like
Right.
a casual conversation starter in places like the U.S.
Ah, okay.
And if you know how to use went, saw, ate, did, came, had,
Yeah.
you can answer that question. It helps you jump right in, as the source puts it.
So it really frames the grammar as a social tool, not just a rule. And does it suggest practicing by thinking about your own stories?
Yes. It suggests thinking about maybe a fun past experience, like a trip you took or really good meal you had, and then trying to use these verbs to tell that little story. The source says this makes English feel more personal and real.
Because you're using it to talk about your life, your experiences.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from just abstract rules to actual, like, personal communication.
Which is what language is really all about, isn't it?
Ultimately, yeah.
And the source doesn't stop there, does it? It encourages you to keep engaging even after the lesson or the segment is over. How does it do that?
It throws down a little challenge. It asks you to make a sentence using one of those 6 past tense verbs you just learned.
And encourages you to share it somewhere.
Yeah, it suggests places like, YouTube comments or social media. The idea is to share your practice sentence.
Creates a bit of community, maybe? Makes it feel less like you're practicing all alone.
I think that's the idea. And it can be motivating to share what you've learned. They even add a little bonus challenge, too.
Oh, what's that?
They suggest trying to use 2 of the verbs in the same sentence.
Leveling up slightly.
Yeah, like their example. I went to the zoo and saw a lion. It's just a gentle push towards making slightly more complex sentences.
Moving beyond the absolute basics. And they
Yeah.
wrap that whole engagement part up with some nice encouragement, right?
Yeah, they tell the listeners, you're all rock stars,
Yeah.
which really keeps that supportive, friendly vibe going.
So connecting all these dots, what's really striking here is the strategy. English has loads of irregular verbs, right? It could be totally overwhelming.
Definitely.
But this source, it zooms in hard on just these six. Go, see, eat, do, come, have, because they're so frequent.
It's like Pareto principle for verbs almost. Focus on the vital few.
Exactly. It's incredibly practical. Learn these six, and suddenly you can talk about a huge range of common past events. It's a massive return on investment for a beginner.
It really lowers the barrier to entry for basic past tense conversation.
It does. And then you layer on how they teach it. The clear forms, the simple usage rules, just use the verb, works for everyone. The repetition practice with say it together. And linking it all to real conversations, personal stories, the cultural aspect.
Right. It all works together. It takes this potentially confusing grammar point and makes it, well, accessible, digestible,
Yeah.
and immediately useful.
It transforms learning these rebel verbs from just like memorizing a list into gaining a tool you can actually use to connect with people and share something about yourself.
Which is way more motivating, isn't it, than just learning rules for rules' sake.
Absolutely. It's not just teaching grammar, it's enabling storytelling.
Well put. Precisely.
Yeah.
So maybe here's a thought to carry with you, drawing from what we've seen in this source. We often think about language learning as mastering all the rules first. But maybe intensely focusing on a very small set of super common essential words, even the ones that break the rules, like these irregular verbs, maybe that unlocks a surprising level of fluency for basic, but really meaningful conversations much faster than trying to grasp everything all at once.
It kind of suggests that sometimes getting really good at the core rebels is the quickest way to actually start using the language to connect. Interesting thought. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into your source material on tackling those first few irregular past tense verbs for English beginners.
Yeah, we hope unpacking this resources approach was useful for you. Maybe gave you some fresh perspective on these 6 verbs. Or, hey, maybe inspired you to try making a few sentences yourself like the source suggested.
And if you did find this deep dive helpful, we'd really appreciate it if you'd consider rating, reviewing, or subscribing. It genuinely helps other people find these conversations.
Thanks so much for joining us.
And we'll catch you on the next deep dive.